Welcome to the Thresholds of Reality, the podcast where we explore unexplained and mysterious events, phenomena, and legends. Today we are joined by Andy N. and Amanda Nicholson, the hosts of the upcoming podcast Cloaked in the Shadows. Strap in as we explore the edges of the unknown. Andy and Amanda, thank you guys so much for joining us today. We are kind of, part of the same ilk, people who are out there exploring the unknown and then trying to tell these stories to the masses. But to kick things off, what we really want to know is, how did you guys get involved with the paranormal or supernatural?
My side, yikes. It's come a couple of ways as both, because I've always been very sensitive towards this sort of side of the supernatural anyway, and because I've based it over time, I've come up with a few stories, and it just seems like I'm quite sensitive to that side of things. Always have been, and yours similar.
Yeah. I've always been interested in the paranormal, and especially things like past lives, and I've always felt like I've been here before quite a few times.
Oh, deja vu, right?
Yeah.
No, you didn't post.
I've two regressions. I had one from a professional hypnotist, and I saw myself being accused of being a witch and being burned to death. So it wasn't very pleasant.
Wow, that's kind of traumatic.
It took me probably about 10 years to sort of go there again. And I got like a self-regression CD and saw myself as a German woman who fled from Germany to come to England and then died in the early 1970s.
Wow. Okay, so
in my case, it was I've had I've always been prone to real vivid flashbacks and stuff over the years anyway. And I know I've lived at least half a dozen times before. And the big one for me was, have you heard of the term a highwayman?
Yeah.
What a highwayman is, yeah. I was quite I'm not going to name him, but I was quite a notorious highwayman down south in England a few centuries ago.
Okay. So you use the word regression. Why don't you explain what a regression is to our audience?
So he put me under hypnosis, and it was really strange because I was like aware of everything, but then I was aware of like the past life on another level, like being in two places at once. So I knew it wasn't happening that exact moment, but it also felt like it was happening at the exact moment at the same time. It was a very strange experience.
Well, it sounds fascinating. So is this particular hypnotist, does he specialize in past life regressions?
He specialized in like past life regression, because he was the father of a close friend of mine at the time, and she was into witchcraft, and the whole family were just like really into like the paranormal, and she used to go to a coven. And they just all seem to be really into it and have some sort of gift in some way.
Did you ever have any sort of apprehension about sharing these experiences with people that you knew, or did you find that people were very open and accepting of them?
I think there's people I would sort of share the experiences with, but then there's other people where they just look at you and think you're crazy. That doesn't happen.
I mean, you can get a crazy look from anybody just pursuing your regular passion.
True.
I play dodgeball, and everyone's like, "What? That's weird."
Well,
so
obviously outside of being what we're talking about today, being a Mandarin like part-time writers, and we frequently get people looking at us strangely over that sometimes, don't we, Amanda?
Yeah, I'm used to it now.
But like before you get to talk about supernatural stuff, we're just used to people looking at us strangely. So.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with the supernatural.
Not always. They just see me coming down the road, or Amanda coming down the road. What the heck is those two?
I mean,
No,
people
I'm
have
sure that's
taken
not
it
the
well.
case.
When I've talked to people about past lives, they've taken it well, or maybe they just sort of agree with me and just thinking, "Oh, she's crazy." Just agree with a crazy woman.
We've got a friend actually. When I first met him 2 years ago now, you got your friend Ruth, haven't you?
Yeah.
And Ruth's like into what is Ruth?
She does tarot readings, but she's very sort of in tune with all that thing.
Yeah, and Ruth actually turned around and said to both of us first time I met her, and this is something really interesting. This where we think she's quite mystic, isn't she?
Yeah.
And she turned around and said to us both, "We've actually known each other in a previous life."
Oh,
Which
she just dropped that bomb on you. She just dropped that bomb on you and said, "Figure it out."
Yeah, that's pretty well what we got. And then it was like, that was most bizarre. We ended up going to watch the cinema that day. Was that an Underworld film, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The last Underworld film. It was, to be honest with you, I don't remember about half of it because I zoned out. I ended up imagining we were in, I seemed to was going to another trance or something, and I was in like, I think it was in Viking ages, but I'm not definite. And I was a big Norse warrior, and Amanda was my bride. And I don't even remember any of the film. And all I remember was me and Amanda fighting for our lives in this big, I think it was a Viking village, which I think was a trance or past life.
Or the film.
You know, Kate Beckinsale has that same effect on me.
That's why. So yeah, better.
Well, that's okay. So it's very fascinating. You find yourself in a trance state, and you're kind of transported into another time and place. Do you think that is always a past life, or could you be manifesting something else?
I think it's past life because some of them I've had before. Like I said, I've had about half a dozen now, and some will come back a couple of times. And I've never been trained in it; it just comes natural. And I said I've had one. I said I've had a number of visions about the highwaymen. This Viking one has happened again since then, it has, but I've not actually properly traced that one yet. I was a soldier in a rather big battle in Texas, should we say, in the 1800s. So I'm not going to. I'll let people work it out themselves. But it was,
are you talking about the Alamo?
Yep.
We remember the Alamo. Okay.
I thought you would. I'm not going to go into details in that one, certainly. But no, like I said, that was the other one, and there has been others, and afterward, I've forgotten them off the top of my head. There's been half a dozen.
So, what do you think is the benefit that you get from pursuing or manifesting these past lives? How does it affect you daily?
It's never really been, probably because I'm very down to earth and there's other things. I find it interesting. I mean, I am definitely interested in exploring things in different ways, and this has helped me understand. It's probably made me a more rounded person in some ways. Because certainly when I was younger, I was quite traumatized when I was younger. My family's never got a good family, but I was certainly an uneven person right in my teens and early 20s. And I actually wonder, and I'm not one of you agree with this, is like doing this sort of thing going up into the forefront is a way of making myself come to terms with who I am now and in the past.
So do you find yourself acquiring or manifesting skills that you acquired in a past life, or is it a fresh start each and every time?
It's a fresh start each and every time. It's fascinating. You do learn. I think to me doing something. It's not. I said to you, I've never naturally done this. It's come natural to me. I'm learning stuff about people in different worlds or different times. I don't think you can learn in the history books.
You can't learn those tricks. Is that what you said?
I think you can learn them. Amanda's obviously had that, and I've never done that way. I've just let it come naturally to me.
I think since I've started to get into it, I've just like been sort of more at peace, I think.
Yeah,
so I think for the first half of my life, there was a lot going on, and I didn't really understand myself, and I had a lot of difficulties.
Yeah, because it's different. I think with both our cases before we got together, we both had traumas in different ways, and since we got together, I've noticed that both of us have got a lot more calmer, haven't we? So it's, I don't know, it's back to what I think Ruth said before. It's like, since we got together, it does feel like, I mean, when you go into a relationship with people sometimes, you know sometimes on it, when you get together, there's something that goes much deeper than what you've had before. And it's like, we both love each other to bits, and everyone knows that. They know it's true. But we've been in relationships before this, and I've never felt anything like this before. It's our friends that have known me for 15 years have said the same. Like, there's comfortable to say it's something a bit unusual.
Do you find that one of you is more sensitive than the other?
I think it varies, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's definitely vary in that one. But I'm not sure whether that's because both are part-time writers as well there. But you're right, I think it varies, don't you? Definitely.
So how many past lives have you actually had visions of?
I've had
You read
6.
about because you talked about 3 of them now.
Yeah, the rest I'll have to go back with notes, which I don't have with me tonight, unfortunately. So, but yeah, I've got quite details of them, and I'll have to go. It'll take me half an hour to go to them up. But I've definitely had 3. I can talk to you tonight about the top of my head.
I've had 2 that I remember, but I feel like there's been a lot more. And there was some random person online, I don't know how genuine they were, trying to tell me I've been here over 30 times.
Oh yeah, I remember you telling me about that. Yeah, yeah. That when Amanda said that one, that was somebody told you, man, didn't it? Like, everybody's lived got 20, 30 lives at least, haven't they? So
I feel like 30 is a lot, but
Does that sound exhausting though? No wonder why we're so worn out nowadays. We must be at life 27 or 28 now. That's why everybody's so worn out and lazy nowadays.
How far back does the consciousness go?
that's a good question. I personally wonder, and I've never properly done this. I wonder whether it's like.
I missed that. You're wondering.
Oh yeah, fundamentally. Amanda was born in 1979. So if this lady died in, let's say, 72, 73, she could have come back a couple of years later. And if that pattern carries on throughout humanity, you could have potentially had.
I heard the theory as well that sometimes your soul gets split and you're in 2 bodies at once at different parts of the world, or like in very close to each other, like the lives overlap.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
Sounds like we're getting some connection issues.
I wonder if it's like, you ever watched that show Criminal Minds?
I've
Sam,
not.
our guest. So there was it's like a team of investigators, and they go find serial killers. But what this guy believed in was that when this original serial killer died, as soon as he died, he entered in. His soul left and went in as this person was being born. Do you kind of think that's how it is, or do you think it's not? You're not near, or is it random all over the world? Like, you're never in the same. You know what I mean? You're always in different places. Like, so let's say I died now and I was going to be reborn somewhere else. It can be anywhere in the world. Or do you think it's close? Or do you think? Does that make sense?
I'm a Buddhist, or not as much as I used to be, certainly. But I've heard of the one where you go in the evolution, like you can end up going from being an animal to a man when you do certain steps all the time. And Amanda jokes to me all the time, she does, like saying that you're a cat of life. That's why. But yeah, I think definitely there's, if you look at this side thing, I don't think there's any sort of set pattern. You could even be the case
Apologize for our connectivity issues, but
I wonder if it is like predetermined, like it's already set. Every life you've done has already been set. What do you think, Sam?
I mean, I'm no expert in past lives. I don't know anything about it really, but
I know some people believe that it's not in order as well. So it's like you could be alive now, and then when you die, you come back, but it's like 1800.
I've not told me this one before, so we listen every day. Yeah. But it's that you think about it, that raises a good question. Are you? Were the ghosts, and I've got two big ghost stories.
yeah, it seems like we're having some connectivity issues. Okay, so we had some connectivity issues. I probably didn't get a good chunk of the explanation you guys had, but regarding you mentioned something about split consciousness.
Yeah. Now that was what you mentioned there, wasn't it? Tell everybody again about the Amanda.
Soul overlap, so your soul or whatever you want to call it could be in two bodies at once for a while.
Oh, really?
Would you have some sort of connection to the other body that is inhabited by the same soul?
Yeah, but I don't think you'd be aware of it. But for a while, when things were going really bad, I used to think there was someone else out there, like another reincarnation of me who was having like all the good luck, and that's why I was getting out.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. Okay, so the single soul split amongst two bodies, it only has a certain amount of spiritual resources, and they have to share. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
It brings me into it. Almost like it. You say we get twins, don't you? And I've seen stories before when one twin's had absolute everything go right for them, the other one's don't look at all. Right? So yeah, it's a similar sort of thing.
I think as well with the different reincarnations, if they're not in the order, that would explain why you get some people who are psychic, because they've been here in a reincarnation in the future, and then they're in the past and they have a sense of what's happening in the future.
Oh, that's interesting. My wife is a twin, and she and her sister do have a lot of connection, spiritually, mentally, emotionally. I don't know that I'd say that they were the same soul. They're very different, but maybe it's this kind of like yin and yang thing, like you're describing, where one person gets all of one type of personality from that soul, and then the other person gets all of the other types of characteristics from that soul. So yeah, maybe
you
that's
get the other side, don't you? You know, like obviously Elvis Presley, obviously was twins, wasn't he? And his twin was actually stillborn. Jesse, his brother. I know that actually haunted Elvis throughout the full of his life, and that does make you wonder what was in that child that died and what didn't go into Elvis and stuff like that. So it's great, yeah.
That's interesting. Okay, so split souls. I think I picked up that maybe you were talking about past lives that were so ancient that maybe it wasn't even a human life, it was an animal life. Did I pick something up like that?
Yeah, because I've read a Buddhist theories. I used to be really into Buddhism and Zen, much less nowadays. But I've read it before where there's talk of like you start off as like an animal and you have to do a certain amount of tasks before you get to the next spirit. So obviously becoming human, and then I've heard it's like we're all beings of energy, really. So is this just another stepping stone to somewhere else?
Yeah, there's some scientific theories that get applied to this sort of supernatural, paranormal. For example, the electron field. An electron neither created nor destroyed. It is an excitement of an electron field. And some people have said, well, maybe consciousness behaves the same way. Its consciousness is neither created or destroyed. It is part of a field of consciousness. And each one of us is an excitement or a point of excitement of that consciousness field. And then when we die, it gets reabsorbed into the field, and then perhaps, it begins a new life in someone else. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we've touched on it already to a degree. I agree with you completely. I think it's very, very likely it has happened, and it's like the thing I always found interesting is stuff like that is why can't we as humans remember why we've lived before? I think it's pretty well similar to Eric.
I think you remember clearly when you were a child, and then you kind of grew out of it a little bit. Because when I was a child, I used to be called like imaginative. I'd say, oh, I've got a good imagination, and I'm always telling stories because I'm talking about different stuff from past lives and that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I know certainly when I was younger, like I used to have about 10-ish or so. I used to go to bed and I'd be dreaming what's going to happen the next day. I think it's as an adult, you seem to human brain. It's the brain, isn't it? Basically, we get a certain stage. It's like a computer, isn't it? And it can't do what it used to do because you're going backwards.
Yeah, I have had instances of deja vu, but nothing really. It was never anything consequential. It was just like, hey, I feel like I've done this already. And it was definitely my life, but it was just like
I've had that before as well.
Just a moment of deja vu where I walk into a room and the way that it's arranged and the people who are there, like everything is exactly as I remember it being, even though it's a unique and wholly new experience for me. So tell me about deja vu. What do you guys know about deja vu? Where does that come from?
Now, Amanda's got some on that because we've had it a couple of times now. We've gone places, and I've seen Amanda going massive shivers, haven't you?
That's sort of like my dad used to call it like if you suddenly shiver for no reason when it's not cold, someone walked over your grave.
I've seen you go into trances before like that. Now you just go zone out for a couple of seconds, and you start shivering
It's
like
like
that.
you see like a flash of something, but you haven't like seen that in your life, but it feels like you've seen it. So the alternative is that you've seen it in a past life.
Or maybe, as you said before, a future life even.
Yeah.
If we look at time like sense of like, there's no, they say with time, isn't there? It's not a straight A to B. I've definitely heard that theory before. It could be like B to C or B to E or something. And it doesn't seem to operate in straight A to B's, I don't think.
So you're saying that it's possible that your consciousness in its existence may jump around through time?
I think so.
So
definitely with that.
So your consciousness right now is inhabiting Andy now, but your next version may inhabit an individual from 1,000 years ago.
I think it's very possible. I also believe as well, obviously I'm massive into astronomy and outer space, and obviously there's quite clearly some kind of life out there in another galaxy, another dimension even. Who's not to say our next life may be in Earth 0.5 or something where we're all like 20 foot tall or something with bright red hair and all completely red. You just don't know, and there's so much, I think, as society, humans, the consciousness, what it leads.
Do you
think back to anyone
like... Go ahead.
Is what, mate?
No, go ahead. You were saying.
Yeah, I was going to say that you think like it was obviously. Look, I'm thinking like the Superman comics and stuff. When there was some kind of scientific basis for that, where like Krypton, they were like normal beings come to Earth. They're all Supermen, super powerful. Who's not to say if in other worlds it would be the same?
Yeah, definitely possible. The gravity on different worlds is a different level, sure. what I was going to ask was, do you ever find any through lines or things that are the same or similar with you now that you relate to in these other iterations of you or iterations of your consciousness and these other beings?
What do you think?
I've only really seen snippets, so I can't really comment.
Yeah, my side. Yeah, I think he's looking at that side of it. I think there is going to be some kind of reoccurring personality trait in everything you do, because certainly of the Highwayman I will talk about, that had a sense of humour in it like I've got. So I'm really, really flippant and probably quite loud as well when I get going, certainly, aren't I?
Yeah.
That's why the Highwayman definitely is not. And I saw it in the one of the Alamos.
So you do have, you are seeing a lot of these kind of, you said your sense of humor, perhaps some courage, some bravery, and you are seeing that come up again and again.
Yeah, I think, I do. Yeah, I definitely see a recurring pattern in it. Like I said with that one. So yeah, I think it's consciousness. I think it's obviously put into a body. There is going to be versions. It's going to be different every time. But I think the man you talking about, that German lady.
Yeah.
I suspect she's like you, basically. Where you didn't really with that. She got off to a horrible start.
Yeah, when I saw the sort of snippets of it during the self-regression CD, I felt like she was frightened.
And what you think that time?
I felt like she was scared of something, and that's why she
frightened.
fled to England.
Yeah. We think at the time in question, wasn't it? Because it was probably a terrifying time. So, you think what a man said before, she said it to herself, she had a bit of a rough start to her life in some ways. This lady, if you look at it as a recurring pattern, she likely had a rough start because it's probably in the tail end of the 40s, wasn't it? So,
yeah.
I suppose obviously it's flowing to England after the Second World War, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd have been a really rough time because that's why.
So do you have any stories? You mentioned the Highwayman. I imagine you've got some pretty interesting stories from your past life as a Highwayman.
Oh yeah, well I got hung. That once. I got hung by the neck and a bit in the forest, and I survived it.
You got hung.
Oh
wow!
Got hung, yeah. Got hung for being a bandit. Got away with it because the Highwayman in question is what do you call it now? He's not his other Highwayman. It was his sidekick or his servant. His servant stayed ahead out of the way, cut me down before my neck broke. So
wow.
With that one, so that was up there, and it looks like this case, and this one, the guy in question didn't live to old age. He drunk himself to death, basically. I'm really bad ale. He got poisoned, basically. So.
Self-inflicted.
Self-inflicted, yeah. Not a reoccurring character trait. This Highwayman was a womanizer. So I'm not having that said to him while I sat next to him. So, but I think he got poisoned.
If you're not getting better, then you gotta make some improvement from one life to the next.
I got with that one, yeah. The on the Alamo side of things, certainly it was a Mexican actually it was that was killed in one of the very early charges across the lines and basically got shot in the head.
Wow. So do you speak Spanish? Are you able to speak Spanish?
Yeah, do it in style. But you look at the other side of the coin, don't you? Like you think. You talk about these past lives and stuff. There's a lot of traumatic deaths. Is that the reason why your body can't move on?
I think if you have phobias as well, sometimes it's linked to past lives. Like if you're frightened of horses or something, you might have been thrown off a horse and died in a past life.
Well, I'm terrified of heights, as you know. I'm really.
So you fell out of buildings.
What? I got pushed out of the barn.
I pushed you out.
In a fast What was this when I was a highwayman when you pushed me in the bar and cheated?
Yeah.
So, Ben, you said one of your past lives that you were a witch. What exactly happened?
I was
Was
accused
it-
of being a witch, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I was. And I just remember being burned, and I didn't feel my skin burning as such, but I did feel like really hot in this life. I was being regressed.
Was this in England? This was it? Or...
Yeah.
Because you also like if you look at like the way the witches are, we had the Pendle witch trials, which are only about 40 miles away from us, and all that was really control against women, basically, wasn't it, Amanda? So
Yeah.
it's probably something akin to that, really, where she might have been like growing herbs and obviously, like I said, she upset somebody.
Well, that would
So-
explain as well at school why I was afraid of Bunsen burners.
Really?
When you saw the flame, and I
I
used to
didn't know
stand
that.
back from it, and I wouldn't go near it.
I didn't know that.
So, like you said, you had that. So you seen the whole vision of you being accused and like being taken and like so like they like tied you up and like
It was
burned
more the
like
moment
it's
of being. It was more the moments of being burned, but I had the knowledge while I was remembering it of why I was being burned.
Yeah, I told me that. See, viewers, if there's things she doesn't tell me, right?
What other past lives have you said you had?
Oh, me or Amanda? I'd
Amanda.
have to go back for notebooks.
Those are the two that I've sort of been regressed to remember little bits about. But then there's lots of other times that it's like strong deja vu, and like you just suddenly shiver for no reason and get like a flash of something that's not happened, but it feels like it's happened in that place, and it just seems really familiar. But I can't like recall the specific lives what they've come from.
Man, that'd be kind of cool to find out that you had a past life, though. Like, we've had one person
I've
on here
heard-
tell me about a past life, but like I've never had any visions or anything. It would be cool to kind of have one.
I've read a theory on this. The reason why we can't remember this is because your brain can't handle it. And if you fully knew what your consciousness was in the past, it would basically wreck your brain through stress.
I think you remember what you're supposed to remember, when you're supposed to remember it.
Yeah, and I've seen the science. I've read a science fiction novel, and it might be by Robert A. Heinlein, where basically when everybody could actually remember all the past lives, and poverty was massively ripe. And basically what happened was, as soon as people knew they had a rubbish life coming ahead of them, they went drunk themselves to death thinking the next life will be better.
I guess that'd be a good reason not to know your past lives. Oh man, you know what? This life sucks. I'm gonna hope for the best for the next one. See you guys later.
Yeah. Get the whiskey out quick then. This is rubbish. The next life will be better.
Mine would be Bailey's.
Oh, we know that.
Oh no, I'm a fly. Crap.
Splat. Yeah, go and
At
jump
least I'm
into
only
the
here
bottle of
for-
whiskey quick.
Yeah.
That would explain why when you go to get a drink and like a fly jumps into it, that's what happened.
I hope he's ready for the next life.
Yeah, then we occasionally get, because where we are in summertime, then we've got a few disagreements on this. I open the windows in our apartment, and Amanda says we actually have flies coming through,
It turns into the next film of Books Life.
and she got around with this fly swatter, and they're obviously coming towards you, Amanda, saying, "Oh, I'll have best life next time. Please take me out."
That's what I'm gonna do from now on.
That
Better luck in your next life. Better luck in your next life. Better luck in your next life.
Do you know if birthmarks are related to past lives?
Yes, I know. Yeah, I have actually. My brother's got a big birthmark in his back. He was born with a hole in the back. He was, and I've got quite a lot of moles up and down me. And
little brown spots.
Yeah, I have heard that theory before, actually. Well, if you look at that, this is a scary thing. If you count up every mole of my legs as a previous life, I've probably got about 100 past lives.
It's like jumping on the trees.
It's true. It's a good point.
So, how does the cycle come to an end? Does it? Does it come to an end?
Well, you look at the theory of the universe, don't you? There's been two trains of thought, hasn't there? The Big Bang, and then they call it the also one is a steady state. And I'm of the opinion, life, unless you evolve into that next level, is a steady state, and it always will keep tickling along through generation to generation. What do you think, man?
I've heard that, like, when you've learned everything, then that's it, and you don't get to come back anymore. But it just seems a bit unfair. Like, you'd want to come back because it's like then you know everything and you can just have fun then.
So once you learn everything, once you become enlightened, you check out. You get to check out.
Was it like the Hotel California? You can check out any time you want, but you can never leave.
Never leave.
So you said you had some paranormal experiences as well?
Yes, I have actually. Have you one story, haven't you?
I had a strange experience when I was a child. We grew up quite poor, and I remember going to bed and there was no food. And like when you're a kid, you think you're hungry when you're not. We'd eaten like the evening meal, but I wanted like a snack before I went to bed. And I remember being really upset about it. And I got woken up by a woman I didn't recognise. And normally, if you're a child, you'd panic if that happens, but it seemed like it was fine. And she gave me some crumpets to eat. I don't know if you have crumpets in America. It's a bit like toasted bread, but sort of, I can't describe it really, but it's a bit like bread anyway, and it's toasted. And she woke me up and gave me these crumpets, and she gave me a glass of milk. And then my mum tried to pass it off as a dream when I woke up, but there was like the plate there with like the butter stains and the empty glass with like a little bit of milk left in it. But we didn't have those in the house. So I've never been able to explain that.
Oh, wow. That'd be kind of creepy.
Yeah, Amanda's had a subtle one. I've had two quite nasty ones, to be honest with you.
Yeah, mine was nice.
Yeah, well, if you call it
fed me.
nice. Yeah. There's a TV program that doesn't exist in England anymore now called Most Haunted. I don't know if you've heard that in America.
We do have similar programs, yeah.
Well, the one here there, and I've had to go quickly and double check the location for this. They did one once in a building called the Albert Hall, which is in the centre of Manchester. And that itself it was an old church in the beginning of the 20th century. It became more recent years, it became put it bluntly, a bloody awful bar or pub called Brannigan's. And it's quite notorious, this one, because it was haunted by an ex-reverend that used to do the church out, and he reputed it, Reverend Collier, basically where he really didn't like what they were doing in this church. And so basically, I used to know somebody who used to work in the staff there, and they told me a similar story as what I'm going to tell you now, where I went down there once 15 years ago, and I went down there for a few drinks with one of my friends one night, and me and my friend were in the gentleman's toilets. And when you start seeing, like the handrail where the aircon thing starts getting unscrewed by invisible hands on the other side of you. You see one screw hitting the ground, then another one hitting the ground. It's time to run. To put it bluntly. That's why. So that was the short story. I know a worse one actually. It's really quite horrible. Was about 20 miles away outside Manchester, there called Buxton, and it used to be a really big mill town in the beginning of the 19th century. And one of my friends and his brothers and his mum and dad went and bought a house there, and they did, and that was connected to a mill, and they weren't, whatever reason, I never found out why, they didn't realise they moved in, it was actually haunted. where I went down there and to have tea once with them. And as soon as you walk through, have you two ever had this one? And you've ever walked through a door and you get a shiver down your back? It's absolutely something really, really wrong.
Mhm.
Maybe not to that degree, but yeah,
I've never had it like that before. Never had it at that level before. And I turned around and said to my friend Ollie, I said to him, something's happened to this house. And I'm sensitive, but not that level. And he said, yeah, there has. And I found out when I saw the ghost, to be honest, it was terrifying, it was. Where I was on the loo and you see 3 little girls running past you, running straight basically through the walls in front of you on the toilet, playing and laughing like Victorian sort of dresses in the workhouse. And then as I came out the toilet, right down the other side of the hallway, you see the lights get darker and darker and darker. And you just know you can feel it, there's a sense of evil there. And then I found out, they told me downstairs, that basically that was the old workhouse master, and he'd killed those 3 girls.
Wow.
That's a good question.
Got a couple of viewer questions. Brian asks, are ghosts just people that have no more regenerations?
What do you think?
Or their time hasn't been chosen to go to the next.
Yeah, so that's a good question, that
Like
one.
in between reincarnations.
Yeah, it could be, couldn't it? I always looked at it more like photographs, really. But it's like, do you imagine you see GIFs on the net, don't you? It's like, I think it's the trauma side of it more, but it's a good point.
Yeah.
It's a good point, certainly so.
There was a creepy thing that happened at the newspaper that I used to work at. I used to work at a local newspaper and I didn't see it. But the guy that I used to work with, he was working for about an hour after everyone left. And he said he just sort of caught something on his computer monitor, like somebody walking past him. But the problem is he used to work at the back of the office and there was just a wall there, so nobody could physically walk past it. And there was nobody else in the office.
That's weird. No, it's about the regeneration thing. Yeah, it's a really, really good point, that is. But the other story I know on this was, and I've not seen this one, was a friend of mine. I can't name. She got a load of old furniture that after her mum died, that came from her grandmum, and her daughter told me this as well as she did. They actually saw the grandmum in that house, and they reckon it was like some sort of like, what's the word for it, an image, on that, because there's attached to that old furniture of the grandmum. So it's like, and that's what they reckon it was. I think that's a very good chance it could be that there's like a paw. Is that a paw print? Is that the right word?
I think like an echo.
Echo. Yeah. That's an echo. That's what. That's what I think. Ghosts are more echoes, like moments in the past, but certainly no more regenerations. It's a fascinating idea, though. Really, really fascinating.
Well, there's got to be a cycle of birth and rebirth and death and re-death and all those things, right? But if you get kind of stuck in the system and you're not going into the next cycle, that's got to be a problem, right? And then you can
it's like
outside of the cycle.
Yeah, the other one is like purgatory, isn't it? It's like obviously like there's purgatory between life and between heaven and hell. Who's not to say there's some kind of thing like this in between lives? If we can't go to purgatory, heaven or hell, I think it's great. Really, really interesting point, that.
So we kind of touched on this earlier, but Brian, one of our viewers, says, what if we're just one consciousness that has to live every single human life? One day you're Gandhi, the next day you're Genghis Khan.
That's a fantastic question.
See,
do you know what it makes you think of with that? I'm no expert on this part of things, but that's like Groundhog Day, isn't it? Except like you're not going around the circle. It's like, oh no, quantum leap.
Yeah.
Quantum leap. Quantum leap physics, that one, isn't it?
I don't think I would want to do that. There's some people that I just really wouldn't want to be.
Yeah, I think it's definitely quantum leap physics. I think it's very, very possible, certainly. God, that's scary, that one, isn't it? What, you wake up as me the next day, and I wake up as you.
Okay.
She moans at my feet all the time. It's the smelling, so no. I mean, it wouldn't be good if we kept swapping the on it.
Very good.
That's why no shaw's moaning about. I keep hitting on the head of a pillar in the middle of the night as well. So
Because he wakes up and he like keeps trying to move his pillows around, and he's not really aware of like where you are. I think are you when you're waking up, and sometimes it's me on the head.
she's making this up, viewers, honestly, right?
Well, that's very funny. Oh, okay. So tell us about the podcast that you guys are going to be putting together, or even the one that's running up.
Yeah, there's a couple of ideas really, because as we've hit in allude before, I'm a novelist as well as a part writer, and you've always had a big interest in writing about supernatural, haven't you?
Yeah.
Because when I first met Amanda, she was writing zombie novels, which are completely different.
Yeah, I don't believe in zombies.
Well, tell us about the big novel you did a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I did a book called Ghost of Me, which was fictional. It was about a ghost trying to solve her own murder. And I came across some really interesting true life stories when I was coming across that about actual ghosts that are supposed to have solved their own murder by like appearing to people and like standing where their bodies were, or standing where like the killer lives and stuff like that, and sort of drawing attention to them until they were found and taken to court and found guilty.
In my side of things, I also do another podcast called Spoken Label. That's primarily about chatting to poets and occasionally novelists, and I've been doing that podcast for many years now. But I've been chatting to a few people recently. Just look at the draw this was. I did an interview with a white witch in Scotland very recently, and she's a fascinating character. And I've just been chatting to twin sisters actually in North America. I forgot my top head. Sorry, that's actually ghost hunters, and all because they've got books coming out. And I told Amanda about this at the time. I felt myself there was legs for us to go and do this, because I was coming across people, and you were coming across people as well.
People we could have as guests, so interesting stories to tell.
And so you said, well, we got to talk to these people, got to get their stories, right?
Yeah, that's what it was. Because I just get to tell you, I do my Spoken Label podcast. I'm pretty good chatting to people. Anyway, you more might have guessed I'm not the quite shy type. No, but also the serious, I always pride myself on, and we're both very good at this. We're really, really good listeners as well as people. And I thought to myself, it's an interesting spectrum to talk about more, because you can get some really interesting theories, and I wanted to have a go at this, and you did as well.
Yeah.
So,
and when is it hitting the airwaves? When can people look for your podcast?
Oh, I think it'll be January.
I think it's going to be January, because we're going to be recording the first episode probably in November, December time, because I'm not revealing who it is yet, because we're not going to, because it doesn't happen, that first one. But we've got a few people we want to talk to, because we've just chatting to two friends of ours last night. And this shows you really how easy it is to pick up the stories this one. Because we've got a couple of friends that are not creative people at all, lovely people, love them both to death. But they've just been telling us on the phone last night their actual house, very unexplained things happen, where things have just gone missing. And then they turn up again about 2 weeks later in the exact same place where they were, but they weren't there the day before.
That sounds familiar, right, Kyle?
Yeah, it happens in my house.
Kyle has poltergeist at his house.
Yeah, I can take my stuff.
I'll ask you to do this one as well. I know somebody that actually his house has been haunted, not by humans, by a cat.
By a cat?
Yeah, the cat and the dog, yeah, seriously.
It just runs screaming through his house at 3:00 in the morning.
well, I've heard on the cat things where the curtain's been pulled down.
It's sleeping and it's smacking him in the face.
Yeah, running up, look at like a cat running up the curtains and just thrashing them. I have heard one about the dog as well, where they heard about the dog. They heard a wolf come in their living room. They did it a couple of times. They did.
Well, that would suck. A ghost wolf. Slog.
Well, it's a great way of getting rid of the burglars. But after that,
It's a good alternative if you're not allowed the pet, though.
I mean, if it's a ghost werewolf that turns into Kate Beckinsale, that's not bad, right?
That's not bad. That makes you wonder whether she was a werewolf in a past life.
She does it well.
That's true.
Okay, so anything else you guys want to let us know before we wrap up?
That's before the podcast is going to be out in January, and it will be on all networks and stuff. And people want to track us down on social media, we're easily findable. And you want to come on the podcast, that's fine.
Well, make sure, for all you listeners, make sure you check out Amanda Nicholson and Andy N. and their upcoming podcast, Cloaked in the Shadows. And if you've got stories about past lives or paranormal, make sure you let them know and see if maybe they'll want to talk to you too.
Yeah. We love chatting, so come and join us.
Well, with that, we are going to wrap up here. Make sure that you like, comment, subscribe. And until next time, keep on exploring the edges of the unknown.